Welcome, and thank you for watching our on-demand information session on the Stroke Survivor to Survivor, or the SS2S program. My name is Aurora Quigley, and I'm the National Program Lead for the American Stroke Association. In this information session, I'll go over some background of the SS2S program, a high-level overview of the roles and responsibilities of key players, and some important helpful information. I'll also play a short sample call so you can get a better idea of what the call experience would be like for the volunteers and participants. Jump in by going over a little history of the SS2S program. Originally developed by Stroke Survivors Empowering Each Other, or CEO, the SS2S program is a telephone-based peer support program for stroke survivors and their caregivers. Since it was created, SS2S has been implemented in 17 hospitals across the country and has reached more than 1,000 newly discharged stroke survivors and caregivers. Please note that throughout the information session and in our program materials, we often just use the term stroke survivor to describe the participant or the volunteer, but caregivers are certainly welcome in either role as well. The backbone of the program, the support phone calls, are all done by trained volunteers. The healthcare facility offering the SS2S program will need an on-site coordinator to serve as a point of contact and oversee the volunteers. But once trained, most volunteers can implement the program fairly independently. SS2S is intentionally designed to rely heavily on the volunteers and have minimal involvement from the on-site coordinator. By having stroke survivors who have navigated at least some of their post-stroke journey provide support to newly discharged stroke survivors, SS2S aims to provide support, guidance, and encouragement. The volunteers are able to lend their supportive ear, help connect the new survivor to additional support, like maybe your support group, and identify when more resources may be needed. The SS2S program is also a great opportunity for survivors to give back after their stroke and become even more engaged in their community. The two main roles that we have responsibilities laid out for with implementing the SS2S program are the on-site coordinator and volunteers. For on-site coordinators, I suspect many of you watching this will fill the role of the on-site coordinator for your healthcare facility. As the on-site coordinator, your primary duty is to act as a liaison and connect all of the key people involved. Since you likely know several stroke survivors from your healthcare facility, you will also play an important role in identifying the right folks to invite to be the SS2S volunteers. That said, you can also connect with anyone else who may have some good ideas, like social services, PT/OT departments, or volunteer services staff members. It doesn't have to fall solely on your shoulders. We do recommend that you recruit at least 2 to 4 volunteers if possible, as we do consider it a best practice for teams of 2 volunteers to make the calls together. With volunteers, we do recommend that they are at least a year and a half out from their stroke so that they are more likely to be at a more stable point in their journey. Also, please keep in mind that since this is a peer-based program, it is important that survivors or caregivers are the ones to make the calls instead of nurses or other hospital staff. That said, if the volunteers identify that the new survivor needs additional follow-up with specific information or resources, of course, that is something that a nurse, social worker, or other appropriate staff member can and should do. For the training, we've actually recorded a training for you as the coordinator and a training that you can play for your volunteers to help minimize the time that you'll need to spend preparing to and actively training your volunteers. Please do keep in mind, though, that you will need to make sure that if your healthcare facilities volunteer services department requires any other trainings like HIPAA, that you'll need to coordinate or lead those as well. Once volunteers are trained, you'll need to make sure that they have the necessary supplies like their sign-in sheets, call logs for notes, and access to a private space to make the phone calls. That said, if your facility opts to implement this in a remote fashion, where volunteers can make the calls from their home, you'll have other considerations to address. We do have some information in our program manual available on that, but if you have any additional questions, we're happy to support you and talk through whatever additional support we can lend in getting that set up. I will also invite you to join me for a web call once every quarter where you can have the opportunity to connect directly with me and other on-site coordinators overseeing the implementation of SS2S from across the country. These calls would not be required, but rather will be offered as a support to help you share successes, navigate any challenges, and discuss best practices. And last, but definitely not least, you or a designated volunteer or colleague will need to enter data from the calls into our web-based reporting form on at least a monthly basis. Please note that we at ASA do not want any personal health information for the participants. All of that will stay secure with you and your volunteers. The only information you will share with us will be aggregate information on calls that made that month. If you are interested in learning more about the data that would be reported, please complete the interest form on our website at stroke.org/SS2S, and I'll be happy to connect with you to answer any questions you may have. For volunteers, as I mentioned before, there will be trainings that all volunteers will need to complete to make sure that we're all working from the same playbook, using the same terminology, and so they can be sure to handle the new survivors' information with care. Beyond that, volunteers are expected to be supportive and honest with their new survivors on the calls. You may ask volunteers to join and attend your healthcare facility support group meetings if you'd like, since they will likely be inviting the new survivor to attend. Of course, it is entirely possible that they already are regular attendees, and that's where you recruited them from in the first place. We also have forms for the volunteers to complete along the way to help them keep track of calls and their volunteer efforts. And these will likely be passed along to you for data entry, like I had mentioned before. Again, to be as clear as I can, all of the identifiable information data that the volunteers collect will only be used internally at your healthcare facility. The only data that will be shared with me or anyone else at AHA will be aggregate, non-identifiable data. In addition to the support calls, a volunteer, ideally one other than the one who was the primary contact for the participant during the support calls, should plan to call each participant about 1 month after they've completed their SS2S program participation to conduct a short participation survey. As with the data from the support calls, this will be reported to us in aggregate on a monthly basis via a web form. As this is a fully scripted interaction, you or a colleague could conduct these surveys instead if needed. And finally, just like for the on-site coordinators, ASA will host a web call every quarter that volunteers can participate in to give and receive support for their SS2S work. Again, these are not required, but volunteers may find it helpful. Now, to give you a better idea of how things might play out, I've got a short sample call for us to listen to. And just so you know what to expect, it is just under 6 minutes long.
Hello, Aurora. This is Sandy. I'm calling from the Stroke Survivor to Survivor program, the program you signed up to participate in when you left the hospital after your stroke. I'm a survivor, like yourself, and I wanted to reach out to you and see how you're doing. So, how are things going for you?
I'm doing pretty well. Other than being so tired, I feel like I don't have any strength.
Oh, fatigue is very common. Good news is that it does improve. I remember the first months after my stroke, getting tired just walking to and from the mailbox at the end of our driveway. And now I'm up to walking 3 miles a day.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That is so good to hear. I'm trying to make little goals each day by increasing my activity.
That's a great plan. Good for you. Do you have any concerns about your physical functioning?
No, I think I'm doing okay with everything else.
Do you have any concerns with how your brain is working in terms of concentration or memory?
You know, it seems that if I try to concentrate, I get a headache. When I cook, I can't follow a recipe because I forget if I've added an ingredient. I've had to throw away a lot of food.
Oh, that sounds familiar. Someone suggested to me when cooking to put out all the ingredients on one side, and when I added them, to put them on the other side, and that way I'd know if I included all the ingredients. I found that very helpful. Concentrating does get better. You have to remember that your body and brain just went through a significant event.
That's a great tip with the ingredients, and that's true about the concentrating. I do have to cut myself some slack.
Yeah. How are things going with your feelings and emotions?
There are some days I'm really down, but then, like you said, I realize I have to cut myself some slack. Overall, I think I'm doing okay.
How satisfied are you with your current situation and future prospects?
I'm doing fine.
How satisfied are you with your ability to carry out day-to-day activities?
I can cook, take care of myself, and get around without help, so I'm quite happy for that.
Yes, that is great. Overall, how satisfied are you with your personal and social life?
I'm so happy to be around friends, but I get foggy and overstimulated in groups.
Oh, I do know what you mean. I have similar experiences. I find that if we can be in an open area where there is more distance between other groups, I am able to hear without concentrating so hard. I have a secret code with my husband as well, that if I nod at him and casually point my head toward the door, he knows it's time for us to leave. We can just casually slip out and no one knows what's happening. It does get better. Concentration does improve.
That's a great tip. I'll have to try that.
Do you have any other questions or concerns about your recovery that I might be able to help you with today?
I don't think so.
Okay. If any concerns do come up, the American Stroke Association's website at stroke.org has lots of great information for stroke survivors. We also want to invite you to attend our stroke support group. You'll meet others who are also working through the recovery. The group is also open to caregivers. It offers them support and a better understanding of what we go through. It meets the third Thursday of the month at 3 p.m. You should have information about it in the discharge folder to refer to. If you're having a stroke, it's critical that you get medical attention right away. So it's important for survivors and their families to know the warning signs of a stroke. Do you remember any of them?
I know it's FAST. F is for face, that you should smile in the mirror and see if your face is equal. The A is for arms, and that if you hold them up, one shouldn't droop down. I don't remember the rest.
No problem. You're off to a great start. The S is for speech. If you have sudden trouble speaking or understanding what's being spoken to you. The T is for time, meaning it's time to call 911. The sooner you get medical attention, the better your outcome may be. I know firsthand how challenging navigating post-stroke recovery can be. I just wanted you to know that you don't have to go through this alone. Would you like us to call you again next month?
Yeah, I would love that. I feel so much better now that I've talked to you. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. I enjoyed chatting with you too. I'll look forward to calling you next month.
Great, thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.
Hopefully that gives you a better idea of how a call could go. The forms that the volunteers have available to fill out during a call are mainly meant to be notes pages with several prompts if the participant is not overly chatty. So now that you hopefully have a better idea of what SS2S is about and what is involved in the day-to-day of it, let's go over some of the important information for moving forward with the program. SS2S was most recently implemented as an expanded pilot that allowed us to learn more about the participants' challenges and needs. while also learning how we could improve the program to make it more broadly available and streamline all of the processes involved. Participants in the expanded pilot were, by and large, happy with their experience and would recommend it to other new survivors. We are now moving into a phase of regular ongoing program implementation, making it available to healthcare facilities across the country at no charge and with ongoing support from ASA and CO. All we ask is that you share your data with us, largely so we can do our best to continue to support the program and make it the best it can be, but also so we can share that information back with you in the context of all of the healthcare facilities implementing SS2S. A few points to consider when making your decision about participation. The SS2S program is intended to help encourage increased adherence to medications and follow-up appointments by new survivors, since they have a fellow survivor calling to check in on them and help identify when additional resources may be needed. It is also a unique communication channel for your healthcare facility, since it is a peer calling to check in on the survivor rather than a staff member or an authority figure of any sort. I will also mention that I've heard anecdotally that several hospitals that have implemented it previously and have gone through accreditation or reaccreditation have had their reviewer look very favorably upon their engagement with the program. Just to be clear, though, this is anecdotal information and in no way a guarantee or a promise. So whenever you're ready to move forward and sign up for the program, be it now or in a few weeks' time, there is a form at the bottom of the stroke.org/SS2S webpage. Fill out the few basic questions that it asks, mostly contact information, and we will follow up with you within 2 business days. Also, if you have any additional questions, even if you're not ready to move forward with signing up for the program, fill that same form out and we will be in touch with you. Thanks.